BookTok is great for discovery, but not so great when it comes to curation of books. Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Uchenna and I'm an African-based digital content creator. And on this channel, I talk about everything books, ranging from book recommendations, book reviews, to book tips, and lots more. And in today's video, I'll be talking about how the internet, specifically BookTok, is ruining your reading taste and how you're going to fix that. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you've been reading a lot lately, but somehow you are not enjoying what you're reading, I'm here to let you know that you don't have bad taste in books. You've just been letting the internet, and in this case, BookTok, choose for you. When it comes to social media platforms, we tend to forget that the algorithm rewards hype, in the sense that you get to see books that are being pushed by the algorithm more on your feed. And in most cases, this leads to repetitive recommendations where you tend to see more and more of a particular book being recommended to you on BookTok. It starts from reading books that everyone is hyping, and after reading, you tend to notice that you don't enjoy those books. And over time, if you continue to do that, you tend to feel like you are falling out of love with reading. And that's as a result of you picking up books that are not your taste and books that you don't like. Don't get me wrong, BookTok is great for discovery, but not so great when it comes to curation of books. And a book can be popular, well written, and still not be for you. How do we fix it? Find our taste and fall in love with reading. The first one is build a personal reading identity. Now, in order for you to be able to find this, you need to know who you are. And that means if you like books that are slow, emotional, and character-driven stories, this would shift you towards reading more of literary fiction and contemporary fiction. Now, if you like to get lost in another world, a world where there's like dragon and creatures, this should let you know that you should tend towards reading more of fantasy books. And likewise, if you like love, if you love to read about love, you should tend to reading more of romance book. And also, if you like murder mystery, you love discovering crimes, you love, getting your brain very proactive, you should read more of crime and mystery and thriller books. For me, I tend to like books where characters are finding their way, they are not perfect, they are trying, they're growing, they're failing, they're experimenting. I tend to like books like that more, which is why I personally lean towards reading more of literary and contemporary fiction. I read all genres, but like on my story graph, it's usually these two at like the top two. In doing this, you'll be able to build a reading identity in the sense that you know what you want, you know what you're looking for. And sometimes you might know what you want, right? But you might want to explore. Now, knowing what you are feeling at that time or knowing what you want at that time would also help you. This leads me to the second tips, which is following themes and not trend. In the sense that you might be a lover of romance book, but there are certain periods in your life where you want to read books that centers on grief, motherhood, books that centers on identity, knowing what you're feeling at that time or what you want at that time. That way, you're not just scrambling up and down on BookTok looking for any books to just read. Personally, I had period where I was reading more of Asian literature, specifically Korean literature, because when it comes to books about healing, the authors tend to write it in a way that reminds me to like slow down, take life easy, and sometimes it's not always my fault, which is why I would always recommend for you to follow themes and not trend. The third tip I have is finding your book sibling. Now, you might be asking, what does book sibling mean? So book siblings are readers that you have similar tastes in books with. And sometimes it takes you being on Bookstagram, BookTok, BookTube for you to discover your book siblings. Personally, I have found some of my book siblings, and these are people that if they read a book and they like it, the chances of me liking that particular book that they read is high. And that's because their tastes and our tastes are very, very, very similar. And sometimes it's just few things that differentiate our taste in books. So I always do recommend for you to find your book sibling, in the sense that you might have to join any of this community. Most times you might not actively be posting or actively be a bookstagrammer, a book talker for you to discover them. Most times it might be that, oh, you've read these books and they happen to read that same book and they liked it. Over time, you can compare, oh, me and this person, we have similar taste in books, and books that they tend to like are also books that I tend to enjoy or I tend to like too. So this would help you in narrowing down just picking up random books and just reading random books that you end up not enjoying. And in cases where you can find your book sibling, this takes me to the next tip, which is for you to join niche book clubs. I'm very particular about it being a niche book club because this would help you in discovering your taste and in reading books that you would like and that you would enjoy. That's because niche book clubs tend to read a particular theme or a particular genre. There are book clubs that read books by specifically just African authors, and there are book clubs that loves to travel around the world. I mean, a couple of book clubs, I mean, the Indulgent Bibliophile Book Club, where we tend to read around the world. I mean, a non-name book club, which is where we read books by Black, Indigenous people of color, fiction and non-fiction. And I mean, another book club where they don't pick a particular book for that month. It might just be like, oh, this is the month of love, so we're reading books on love or about romance. So that month they'll be reading books that centers around love and romance. So it all depends on what you like or what you want to explore more of. So if you are unable to find your book sibling, I do recommend you joining a niche book club. From there, you can also discover your book sibling too. The next tip I have is for you to read authors' backlist. If there's an author you discover, you read one of their books and tend to love it, I always do encourage readers to go and research more on that author, check out their published works and see if there are like other books that they'll be interested in reading. For me, I can't remember the first title of Tyler Hurbelt that I read, but I read the Brand Sisters series. I think that those are like the first books I read, and that made me to like explore more of her books, and I'm still also exploring more of her books. Then I also read Nnedi Okorafor. I loved most of her books and I'm still exploring some of her books also. I also love JCQ Sutanto. She's an Asian author, and all the books she's published so far, I've read all of them. And that started from me just reading Die A for Auntie. That was the first book that I read by her, and ever since it has been like a cult. I've also read Ekweke Emeze books. I think my first book was Freshwater. It was a very difficult read for me, but I could just tell, oh, this author has so much potential and they write so well. Then I made it a thing to read any book they publish. And finally, we have Taylor Jenkins Reid. When it comes to her, I read anything and everything she published. So I highly, highly do recommend you read the backlist of an author you like. The final tip I'm going to give is for you to use your favorite to determine your next read. Now, there's this thing I tend to do, and even the book club I'm in, that after reading a book and we tend to like that book or we love that book, we would look for books that are similar to that and we would read them. So for you to do this, you need to know what you enjoyed in the book that you read and why did you enjoy it. The probability of you picking up books that you like would be more higher than you picking up books that you end up disliking and feeling like you wasted your time to read those books. I hope you find these tips helpful because they have helped me in avoiding reading slump. I can't remember the last time I had issues of, oh, I'm in a reading slump, which I tend to see readers experience, which is not a bad thing. But if you don't want to be falling in a constant reading slump, I would encourage you to try these tips. And for cases where you are in a reading slump, one of the tips I always encourage people to do also is to just go back and reread a favorite of theirs. So it could also be just a short story collection. It could also be reading a graphic novel. Just go back to read something you like, something simple. That way you'll be able to build yourself into getting out of that reading slump. So in conclusion, if you're going to create your own TBR list and increase the chances of enjoying reading more and falling in love with reading, I would highly recommend you choose books based on your preference. It is very, 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 very important. I'm not based on what's popular, because what's popular, like I said, might be popular and well written, but that book might not be for you. I hope with these tips you'll be able to fix your reading taste and also continue to fall in love with reading. If you are yet to subscribe to the channel, please do click the subscribe button below this channel and do recommend this channel to friends and enemies you know that loves books and loves reading and are looking for like recommendation and tips. I will see you in my next video. To this.